Assalamu alaikum dear audience, this is Sanoba Sultan and here you are watching another video on Sanoba's World. Now the topic of discussion today is titled Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, and this idiom would be referring to Prophet Musa or Moses, whose story would be discussed in today's video and from the Holy Quran. So we'll get straight to the point. I would be narrating you several chapters where his story is described and explained. So the narration of the story of Musa is actually spread throughout the Quran, and I would be giving you references which include chapter Qasas or Surah Qasas, Al-Qasas. This is chapter number 28, and the translation is, quote, the stories, unquote. Surah Al-Araf, this is chapter number 7, and it means, quote, the heights, unquote. Surah At-Taha, this is chapter number 20. Surah Ash-Shura, this is chapter number 26, which means, quote, the poets, unquote. Surah Al-Ghafir, which is chapter number 40, and this means, quote, the forgiver, unquote. Surah Yunus, or chapter number 10, this refers to Prophet Jonah. Surah Al-Baqarah, this is chapter number 2, which means, quote, the cow, unquote. Next is Surah Al-Ma'idah, this is chapter number 5, and this means, quote, the table spread, unquote. Next is Surah Al-Kahf, this is chapter number 18, and this means, quote, the cave, unquote. And then it is Surah Ahzab, this is chapter number 33, and this means, quote, the combined forces, unquote. So by narrating these chapters, what I mean is that the story of Moses or Musa is spread throughout the Quran. So now we will be discussing the story. But here's the thing. The story of Prophet Musa has so many facets. It is multifaceted. It is spread. There are many dimensions of his life that are explained. But for this video, I will be focusing on two aspects. Okay, so for this video, what we are going to discuss about Prophet Musa is two aspects. The first is his interaction with the Pharaoh, and then the second is, which I'll be discussing later, which you can call it as the ungrateful people. So now in the first part, you see there was a Pharaoh in modern day Egypt, and there were these people which are known as the Bani Israel, and they were highly mistreated and they were treated as slaves by the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh was a tyrant Pharaoh. He was actually worshipped as a god in Egypt, and everything he said was taken as a command by God. So one night, the Pharaoh saw a very scary dream, and the dream could, what he considered was that there would be there would be a problem for his kingdom, that perhaps his kingdom would be overruled. And of course, he didn't want that. So when he saw the dream, he called the interpreters and he said, what does this dream mean and what should we do? Now, the oppressed people under the Pharaoh, which were the Bani Israel, the dream interpreter said that we should kill all the boys born in Bani Israel and spare the girls. That means there will be no boy to stand up to the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh agreed to that kill all the newborn boys and spare the girls. But here's the thing, if they kill all the boys, then who will be the slaves? And that would mean the extermination of Bani Israel. And if the Bani Israel is exterminated, if there will be no boys, then who will be working for as slaves for them? So they decided that how about we do it alternative year. 1 year kill all the boys, and for the next year spare the boys, and then the next year kill all the boys, newborn baby boys. um, so actually the brother of Prophet Musa, who was Harun, how he was spared was because he was born in that alternate year where the baby boys were spared. Now with Musa, what happened was when he was born, his mother was became fearful that the forces of Pharaoh would come and they would kill the newborn baby boy. But Allah placed it in her heart that the baby boy would be fine, and what she should do is make a basket and put the baby boy in the basket, and just let the basket go in the river Nile, and the baby boy would be safe. So she did that. Musa's mother, she put the baby boy in the basket, and she asked the baby boy's sister to see where the basket would be going. And eventually that basket led to the palace of the Pharaoh. Now when the basket reached the palace, it reached the queen, who was the Pharaoh's wife. And when she looked at the baby boy, there was this motherly instinct that kicked in her, because she had no children of her own. And Pharaoh thought that this was some trick by the Bani Israel to spare their baby boy. But when he saw his wife, how happy she was, and she asked the Pharaoh to spare this boy and how about the Pharaoh and the queen raise this baby boy as their own boy. And the Pharaoh let her. So Musa was actually raised in the palace, in the house of the Pharaoh, with all the privileges. Now, eventually, when Musa grew up, he had what is immense physical build. So he had a lot of muscle strength, and then he had a lot of wisdom. Now, I'm going to fast forward the story because, like I said, I want to focus on some aspects. So I'm going to fast forward the story, and because you can read it. And I will tell you that there was some altercations that led Musa, to leave the city, leave the place, and that eventually led him out in the outskirts to a mountain. And in the outskirts, when he reached the mountain, he heard a voice, and that voice was actually God. That was Allah, who said to Moses that, this is me talking to you, Moses. And Allah gave Moses 2 miracles. Okay, so when you read that conversation, Allah said to Moses, what is it that is in your hand? And Moses said that it's actually his staff. Staff is a stick with which I do different things. So he said, well, so Allah gave him 2 miracles. The first one was that the staff that he was holding, it was actually, when he threw it, it could do tricks. And it actually, when he threw that staff, it it became a serpent. It became this big snake. And then Moses was so scared But then God said, do not be scared. This is actually for you to control. And just for all the millennials and out there who've read Harry Potter, because I've read all the Harry Potters multiple times. So when I read that, that sort of made me feel like, that's like the snake, in Harry Potter, the Voldemort snake and Slytherin and all that. So yes, so that snake could slither. And the second miracle that was given to Moses was that his hand, he said, well, when he took his hand out of his shirt, the hand actually became a bright light. Like it lit up, like till here, I suppose, like a bright lamp, white light. And then Allah said to Moses that take these two miracles and go to the Pharaoh and the people, because he is a tyrant, and tell him that he is not a god, that you have to mend your ways and stop worshipping idols and stop worshipping Pharaoh, because these are miracles given by God to tell mankind to mend their ways. Now, Musa went back to the palace, and he went to the Pharaoh, to the courtyard, and he started to say all these things, that there's a God up there, and we have to follow God's commandments, and there is no God on earth. And when Pharaoh heard all that, of course he recognized him and said, you've been how ungrateful have you been? We raised you in this palace, and now you come back after all these years, and now claiming such things. So what happened was, he said that he has miracles. Now when Pharaoh heard about those miracles, he thought that they were actually magic tricks. And he said, well, we have magicians as well. So he called all the magicians from the kingdom and said, well, let's have a magic show. Let's see what the tricks you have, all of you. Let's see all your tricks. And Musa said, well, I'll let the other magicians do their tricks. And what they did was, when they threw their staff, the sticks became snakes. Now Musa said in his heart that whether he would be able to do something, because he was not a magician, he was a prophet. And Allah said to him, do not be scared of these magic tricks. And Allah said to him, throw down your staff and see what happens. And when Musa threw his staff, it became a giant snake, and it swallowed all the snakes of those magicians. And those magicians, when they saw that, because of course they know the tricks of their trade, they understood that this was not a magic trick, and this was really a miracle from God. And they bowed down and they said to Musa that we believe in God and we do not want to worship Pharaoh. Now when Pharaoh saw that, he said, I will cut you all into pieces. I mean, how dare you not disobey the Pharaoh? And the magician said that do whatever you want, but we will obey Musa's God. And well, you know what the Pharaoh did? He actually executed all the magicians, and he hung their bodies from trees for everybody to see as a deterrence. So he was a very, very tyrant man. And then what happened was, he was so angry about everything, how frustrated he was, that Musa was spreading the word of God everywhere in the masses, that what he did was, he went to so he started introspecting, and he called his senior minister, said, his name was Haman, and he said to Haman that, Haman, why don't you build me a tower? Like a giant, long, towering tower. And because so that, Pharaoh said, so that I can climb that tower and go see the God of Musa. Because where is God? Maybe I can build such a high tower that I can reach up to the heavens and see God. And and he said, of course. And he said to his senior minister, Haman, of course I know that there is no God, because I'm certain that Musa is lying. And even if I build the tower, there will be no God. Now Haman said that to the Pharaoh, that you see, there's no point in building a tower, because even if we build a high tower, you, the Pharaoh, will not find God, because you are God. That's why you won't find God. And that really appealed to the ego of Pharaoh. So yes, and the persecution of the Bani Israel, or the people of Hazrat Musa, continued. And Allah started to give punishments to the people of Egypt, such as famine, floods. The Nile, the river Nile turned red, and many different things. And every time a calamity would come, the people would rush to Musa and say, Musa, could you please pray to your God and end this calamity? And when Musa would do that, they would again revert to their old habits of worshipping the Pharaoh. And then this continued back and forth. Eventually, Musa one day, by the direction of God, decided that they were going to leave Egypt and this persecution in the middle of the night. And when they decided to leave Egypt, and him and his people, they reached a point which is the Red Sea. Okay, so they reached the Red Sea, and Pharaoh found out, and then Pharaoh came with all his army. And now you see the idiom between the devil and the Red Sea refers to this. So there's the Red Sea in front of Musa, and behind him is Pharaoh, or Pharaoh as we say in the East. And where do you go? There's no way to go. And then the miracle is, Allah said to Moses, throw down your staff. And when Moses threw his staff in the sea, the Red Sea actually parted from the middle. Okay? And then Musa and his people just walked through the Red Sea. Now, Pharaoh is watching that. Now, Pharaoh said to his people that, actually why the Red Sea parted. The Red Sea parted because I can go catch them. That's why the Red Sea parted. And now I'm going to follow suit. I'm going to go after them in the Red Sea. Now, when Pharaoh went in the Red Sea with his army, suddenly, because they had already passed the Red Sea, Moses and his people. So suddenly Allah ordered the Red Sea to come back to its place. And when Pharaoh saw that, he saw his ending, that he was going to drown, he suddenly said that I believe in Musa's God and I want to be saved, that I want to convert now. But Allah did not accept Pharaoh's conversion, because it was not, because he was doing it out of desperation, because he knew he was dying and he just wanted to be saved from that, from drowning. And then his body was washed ashore to the beach, and Allah said that your body, that Pharaoh's dead body, would serve as as a symbol of tyranny and what Allah does to tyrants. So that was the end of the first part of Musa's story for this video. Okay, so this chapter of Pharaoh is now closed. Now the second aspect what I want to discuss now is how ungrateful the people, the followers of Musa were. Okay, so now we're starting the second aspect of the story. And you can, as a subheading, call it the ungrateful people. Now, what happened was when Hazrat Musa was and his people were passing by after they, passed the Red Sea and everything. This is a new chapter in their life. And they passed by a town and they saw that people were worshipping an idol. People were worshipping idols there. So, there was something in their psyche, in human psyche, because they had been worshipping idols and worshipping Pharaoh for so long, that they needed a physical representation of God. And this abstract concept of God, where Moses talks to God, but where is God? Like I said, Pharaoh said to his senior minister, make me a tower so I can go and see God. Where is God? So again, now Moses' people, the people of Hazrat Musa, even though after everything that they've been through under the rule of Pharaoh, now that they were out of that, now they started, when they saw idol worshippers in that town, you know what they said to Musa? They said to Hazrat Musa that, can you make us a god just like their gods? Because we would also like to have a physical representation of God. And Musa was so appalled by that after everything that they've been through, the persecution that they've been through, now it's like they completely forgot about it. And now they're saying, can you give us a physical representation of God in the form of an idol or any physical representation? Yet, Allah was merciful to them. When to the people of Bani Israel, you know what? When they were quarreling among themselves over water, Allah said to Musa that, why don't you strike this rock, a particular rock, with your staff? And when Musa struck the rock with his staff, the rock split into 12 springs for the 12 tribes of Bani Israel. And when they were hungry, Hazrat Musa's people, Allah sent them food from Mano Salwa. Mano Salwa was this divine birds from Allah, and they would send them food. So they just had to sit there and eat food. Now, how ungrateful they were, that then they said to Musa that, this food that we are getting from Allah, from Mano Salwa, this is the same type of food. I mean, it feels same on my palate. Why don't you ask Allah to send us different varieties of food? Because this is all tasting the same now. And, so, and then Moses was again so shocked. He said, well, then let's just stop Mano Salwa then. Go find your food yourself. Go to some town and eat whatever you want. You don't want Mano Salwa then. Okay. Eventually, they continued their journey. And what Allah had promised them was a territory of promised land, which is modern day Palestine, or whatever is left of Palestine, as you know, the ongoing the issue that is going on in that territory. So they said that Allah promised them that you would travel to the promised land where you can live with freedom and abide by Allah's law. And but they were being highly ungrateful. And as I mentioned the previous things, now they wouldn't listen to Musa. And when Hazrat Musa said to them that, would you conquer this land, this particular territory, and there was a specific territory, and out of those 6 lakh people, an estimate of 6 lakh people, followers of Hazrat Musa, only 2 of them stood up to fight, and the rest of them said, yeah, you're so interested, you go fight, we're just going to rest here. So Musa became very frustrated, and I will quote this, that in Surah Maida, which is verse number 25, Moses said to Allah, quote, "My Lord, I have no control over anyone except myself and my brother, so set us apart from the rebellious people," unquote. So this again refers to our belief system, that you are responsible for your actions and you will be accountable for your actions, and everybody around you, they are responsible for their own actions. Okay, so you do your part of good. Okay, and then in the same chapter, Allah replied that because of their not listening to Musa and being ungrateful, the promised land would be forbidden to the Bani Israel for 40 years. And Allah said in Surah Maida, quote, "Do not grieve over the condition of these transgressing people," unquote. That means that Musa, don't feel sorry for them if Allah punishes them, because they deserve it. Okay, so while they were continuing their journey, Musa reached the same mountain where at the beginning of this video, where the journey of his conversation with Allah had started, when Allah had given him 2 miracles. So he reached the same mountain again, and this time he left the group because he was so frustrated with them, with their behavior, and he left them for the mountain to seek guidance on how to best to lead his people. And Allah said to him that to Musa, to purify yourself, and by purifying you would have to fast for 30 days. Now Musa fasted for 30 days, and then on the 30th day and Allah said to him that if you fast for 30 days, I will give you commandments on how to lead your people. So on the 30th day of the fast, Musa ate from a plant to freshen his breath. So you can imagine like something to freshen your breath. And this is narrated in Surah Al-Araf. And Allah said to Musa, "Why did you break your fast?" And Musa said that I wanted my breath to smell good when I talk to you, to Allah. And Allah said no. Allah replied no, that the odor of your fast was better to me than this minted, scented breath of yours. So now, because you've done this, now go back and fast for another 10 days. And then come back. So yes, so Musa went back and he fasted for another 10 days. So that meant 40 days of fasting. And then he came back to converse with Allah. Now this time, Allah said in Surah Al-Araf, now you see, when we say we talk to Allah, he was talking to Allah, he actually nobody has ever seen Allah, nobody has ever seen God. And this is when Allah said to Moses in Surah Al-Araf, this is quote, "Never can you see me. However, behold this mount. If it remains firm in its place, only then you will be able to see me," unquote. Now, of course, that couldn't happen. The mountain collapsed to a heap of dust, leaving Musa unconscious. And then Musa got up and he understood that he could never see God. He could only hear God. He could converse with God, but he could never see God. And then Allah gave him a tablet. Now, tablet is like a stone, okay, like a stone tablet, on which there were inscribed the 10 commandments. So on that stone were inscribed the 10 commandments. Now you see, while Musa was on the mountain fasting and then conversing with Allah, eventually back with his followers down there below the mountain, the followers again, firstly, they were ungrateful. Secondly, was their desire to worship a physical version of God. It was so inbuilt, entrenched in their genes, in how they had been brought up. They just couldn't adopt to the idea of an abstract God. They said we need a physical representation of God. Because of that, what happened was, while Moses was away, what his people did, so there was this evil man, his name is Samiri, and he's also named in the Quran. So this evil man, he collected all the gold from the people, from the Bani Israel, and he put it in a pit, and he lit up a fire, and when the gold melted, they actually, under Samiri, they made a cow out of that gold. And then they started worshipping that cow made from gold. Now, they said, this is our new God. Now we're going to worship this cow. And when Musa came back, he saw his people that they were dancing and chanting around that golden cow statue, that golden cow statue. And then eventually what Musa did, by the commandment of Allah, as narrated, this is narrated in Surah Taha, that Samiri was punished and the golden cow was burnt. Musa burnt the golden cow and he spread its ashes, scattered those ashes across the sea. And Musa did that. Now, after that, when Musa showed his people the 10 commandments, the 10 commandments, the people questioned whether the tablet was really from Allah. I mean, they said, how do we know this tablet or the 10 commandments are really from Allah? And then they said to Moses, why don't you take us with you and show us God? Show us Allah. We also want to see Allah. If you can see Allah, why don't we have the right to see Allah? And actually, Moses never saw Allah. So then the 70 elders of the family, of the tribe, Bani Israel, of his people, they said, we also want to see God, and then we will believe the 10 commandments is from Allah. So they also went to the mountain, and Musa went to the mountain again with those 70 people of Bani Israel, and they went to the mountain, and Allah was merciful, and he spoke to Musa in their presence, in the presence of those 70 people of Bani Israel. And he spoke to Musa, and they heard Allah. So those 70 people heard Allah, and then they came up with a new demand when after hearing Allah. And this is actually narrated in Surah Baqarah. This is quote, this is those 70 people saying to Musa, this is in Surah Baqarah, this is quote, O Musa, we will never believe you until we see Allah with our own eyes, unquote. So show us God. Tell God to show himself. Now, when they were making such demands, it was apparent that these 70 people no matter what sign you show them, they're still going to abide by their old ways. So Allah made himself known to those 70 men by punishing them, as the lightning struck and an earthquake took place beneath them, and those 70 people died. Now Musa, because they were his people, he felt so sorrow, and then he appealed to Allah to forgive them. Now Allah, being merciful, accepted Musa's request and brought those 70 people back to life so that they may be grateful. So eventually, those 10 commandments were the word of Allah. And I'm just going to wrap this story by saying that Bani Israel eventually reached the promised land, but that was after the death of Prophet Musa. Now again, as I mentioned before, I've just picked up aspects of Hazrat Musa's story. There's more to his story. But I'm just going to wrap the story up by saying that firstly, humans adapt really fast. As this is narrated, I mean, they were the same people who were persecuted by Pharaoh, and as soon as that period of life ended, now they become suddenly they forgot about it. Secondly is how ungrateful human beings can be. No matter what you give them, they say, I want more. So the solution in our religion is that stop looking at people above you and start looking at people below you. And by below you means people with more problems, be they financial problems, be they health problems, be they any other problems. Then you should be grateful for what Allah has, because when human beings are ungrateful, and Allah does not like ungrateful people, because you see, when what you have, you feel a sense of entitlement for it. Whereas no, what you have should be seen as a blessing from Allah, not as a sense, not an entitled right. Because when it is taken away from you, that is when you realize what you had. So do not be ungrateful. And the oppressed, when they become in charge of the same place, should not then turn into the oppressor, because this is also a tendency in human history. And there could be other themes as well, so you can let me know what other lessons can we draw from Prophet Musa. And again, from our religious perspective, Hazrat Musa conversed to God. That was a miracle that was given to him. But now in our religion, there is no prophet, okay? No living prophet ever since the last prophet, which was Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. That was the last prophet, and no miracles. Okay, those miracles were given to prophets, and every prophet had a different journey. Every prophet came in a different time, and they had their own set of problems, and they had their own set of miracles and everything. So every prophet is different. And the last prophet was Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And because as Muslims, we know what his story was. And there is no prophet, and nobody gets to play God. Only God is God. And this desire in human beings, where they say, where is God? This is actually not new. This has existed since ever. Human beings have always said, this is an abstract concept, whereas Allah says, no, you have signs, and you have to believe that there is God. And there will be accountability for it. And those who are ungrateful for what they have will be punished. So Allah does not like ungrateful people. So that was a very lengthy video for today. So do let me know what you thought about it. And I shall see you all very soon. Thank you. Allah Hafiz. Take care.